your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live, this is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Thank you for listening to me. Today we are in our Tuesday day of our week, and we are going to spend some time in just a few minutes getting into some of the issues in the news, in particular this foreign policy debacle, and we'll get into some of that. Also, some of the questions about the judges. Got a very good piece by Robert Knight, The Judges Who Would Be Kings. Also, another one talking about how there's a back and forth between the judges and the presidents. We'll be talking with our good friend Walker Wildmon. And then next hour, Jerry Newcombe will be with us as well. But let's get into this for just a few minutes. You may have seen this before, but it turns out that there was an opportunity to begin a conversation about what was going to be taking place militarily. And in the process, an individual by the name of Jeffrey Goldberg, who, if you're not familiar, is the editor of The Atlantic, kind of a left-of-center publication, individual that probably is best known in the past for inventing the suckers and hoaxes statement that supposedly was made by Donald Trump. It was not. And so the issue is that he was invited to join into a conversation with the entire national security team using Signal. Now, there's a lot of problems with that. The first is they were using Signal, which, according to the Google Threat Intelligence Group, has said that Russian-backed hacking groups have been able to develop techniques to really compromise encrypted messaging services. So, first of all, why were they using it in the first place? Second of all, of course, the problem, how is it that Mike Waltz invited this journalist, shouldn't probably be on his contact list if you think about this, Jeffrey Goldberg. Number three is that then at some point along the way, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, boasted about the operational security of the team. And then finally, a little bit into that, you'd already had a statement made the other day by the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, saying that any unauthorized release of classified information is a violation of the law. Well, the flap has gotten worse, because you now have had before the Senate Intelligence Committee the CIA Director John Ratcliffe, the FBI Director Kash Patel, and the Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard actually arguing that, first of all, even though they were using a messaging app, why they were using it, I do not know, that even as they were planning a strike on the Houthis there in Yemen, she tried to, and then later even John Ratcliffe tried to argue that they had not sent any classified information. There are a lot of lessons to learn. First of all, the one lesson is maybe if you're going to really deal with something at that level, maybe you should use something besides Zoom or Snapchat or Signal in the first place. Number two, just assume, as we say so often in the radio business, always assume every microphone is live. Something you say, even in what you think is a secure situation, may not be. And most importantly, the lesson I think we could learn today is it really would have been very good for a lot of people to say, we made a mistake, we're going to try to do again. But all the equivocation and everything is maybe the greatest lesson for us to learn. You make a mistake, admit the mistake, and in some respects this becomes a one-day or two-day story, but we'll see where it goes. But nevertheless, I wasn't planning on starting with that, but that's kind of the issue in the news today about this foreign policy debacle, this national security debacle, and I'm sure we'll still be hearing about it a little bit in the future. But this is day 2 of our Truth Team Week, and in order to really understand what is going on, we always like to bring in our good friend Collin Lambert to remind us where we are and to set the scene for what we're going to be doing today.
Day 2, you just said it, Kerby. That's important. Day 2 of Truth Team Week. What is Truth Team Week? Well, it's the week a couple of times a year that we ask you to get involved with what's happening here at Point of View. We are listener supported. That's how Point of View exists and continues and grows through your gifts. And so we're grateful for those who have already given. We saw a great response yesterday, praying for a great response today. Let me give you the number and the website and then give you a couple of bits of information to help us get started. The number, of course, is 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. Pointofview.net. You can just click on the big Anchored to Truth banner. It'll take you right there. We've got 3 giving levels we'd like you to consider. A $30 a month giving level. You'll get the Outlook magazine and some of the wonderful monthly booklets that you hear about from Kerby on every major topic under the sun. Also, for the $50 a month or more giving level, we've got this wonderful wooden Point of View coaster set, which you will be seeing a couple of times through the broadcast today if you're watching online. And if you go to that $100 or more per month gift, we'll add into that the Point of View Igloo snap-down cooler. Holds 36 cans. There's a lot of space in there for you, and it's just our way of saying thank you for being a part of Truth Team Week. Great response yesterday. We had 8 new givers yesterday, which I love. We were talking about new donors to join, and we've got 8. I would love to see 10 people today who've never given before give for the very first time. I think now would be a wonderful time to start. Here's the final item, and maybe most important, we have a $1,000 dollar-for-dollar match on the board to get us started today.
Hey.
So any gift right now up to $1,000 will be doubled starting right now at 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, pointofview.net. Either way, your gift will be doubled up to $1,000.
Again, dollar-for-dollar match, so that's on the table, and especially as we come to a break in just a minute, I know that's when many of you would like to call in, and I hope that you will do so. Let me just say that our first article here is by our good friend Robert Knight, in which he's talking about kind of the push back and forth, first of all, between President Donald Trump and the Chief Justice John Roberts, but also the push back and forth between the Trump administration and these various judges around the country who are involved in making decisions, in some cases challenging the administration. 677 district judges. Not all of them have filed lawsuits, but we are up to at least 160 lawsuits for sure just in the first 60 days, and more injunctions in just last month and during the entire 8 years of Barack Obama. And so I think we will get into that conversation not only with Robert Knight's article, but also another one that is written by an individual that is associated with the American Family Association. So we're going to have some conversation with Walker Wildmon. I know you don't want to miss that. He serves as the Vice President of Operations and Public Policy for American Family Association, and also, of course, is the host of the radio program on American Family Radio. But Collin, just before we go to a break, let's remind people we now have a dollar-for-dollar match on the table.
We do, and now's the time to take advantage of that. $1,000 dollar-for-dollar match. First, we want to thank the person who made that possible. Thank you for giving that gift, and we want to encourage you to be sure and utilize this. A $25 gift becomes $50, a $50 a month becomes $100 a month for the first year. That's the way it works. And again, it's up to $1,000. Your gift matched right now, dollar for dollar. 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, or pointofview.net.
Again, we're going to be talking with Walker Wildmon about a couple of things. First of all, the judge issue, but also he was at a White House briefing for faith leaders. Want to get some of his comments on that. So as we go out, again, let me encourage you to go to the website, pointofview.net, or we have people ready to answer the phone at 800-347-5151.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
John West of Discovery Institute was on my radio program recently to talk about his book, Stockholm Syndrome Christianity. To understand his conclusions, you need to remember what the Stockholm Syndrome means. The phrase comes from a bank robbery in Stockholm, Sweden that took place in 1973 when an escaped convict and his accomplice took 4 bank employees hostage who began to bond with the criminals and started to view the police and the government as enemies. John West asked a powerful question. What if American culture isn't collapsing because of crusading secularists? What if it's failing because many leading Christians identify more with secular elites than with their fellow believers? His book catalogs many examples. One chapter describes how Stockholm Syndrome Christians have infected the pastorate of churches, leading to a dismissive view of the Bible. He quotes a pastor who wants to discard the Old Testament. He details how Stockholm Syndrome Christians promote a diminished role of God in creation. He discusses the rise of scientific materialism and also talks about Christians who seem to be evangelizing for Charles Darwin. As you might imagine, he also describes how Stockholm Syndrome Christians have damaged our understanding of sex and gender. This has led to a redefining of marriage and the abandoning of biblical standards. He concludes with a call to wisdom, a call to action, and a call to faithfulness. He also includes a website with an online assessment that will help you diagnose you, your church, and others. He also provides discussion questions and a curated list of resources. So if you want to diagnose Stockholm Syndrome Christianity and provide a remedy, this is a book and a website that you will need. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
Go deeper on topics like you just heard by visiting pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net. Point of View, keeping you anchored to truth.
And I am so grateful that you're on the air and you've been doing this for decades, and you're consistent in what you're doing. You're not just looking for the latest trend to jump on. You're all about biblical truth, and I love that. I appreciate that, and I applaud you for that. And part of the reason why what you're doing is so critically important is because a lot of the people that you're able to reach through radio, first of all, don't go to church. And secondly, a significant number of them attend churches where they're not going to hear this consistent, integrated biblical truth. They're not going to be encouraged to integrate this into their life and to live it, not just to hear it, but to do it, as James talks about. Don't just be a hearer of the word, you got to be a doer of the word. Well, we do what we believe, so you're helping people to develop those biblical beliefs, and man, I'm so thankful that you're doing that.
Point of View, anchored to truth.
George Barna talking about the importance of supporting Point of View. And as we just mentioned a minute ago, we do have a match on the table. And Collin Lambert with me in studio. We're going to be talking with Walker Wildmon in just a minute, but we already have people on the phone, so that's a good thing.
I love to see that. Yeah, we want to keep these volunteers busy because we want to make use of that $1,000 dollar-for-dollar match, and you can do that right now at 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, pointofview.net. And again, a reminder, whatever level you'd like to give at, you can give it over 12 months. You don't have to have it all available to you today. It's kind of a faith promise for the coming year. So if you want to give a one-time gift or consider a monthly gift, that's great. Let me also speak to those of you who have given monthly or are giving monthly. We had a number of people yesterday give a little more. Maybe this year you could give a little more. You're giving $30 a month. Maybe you could give $40 a month. That's a great opportunity. We saw a number of people take advantage of that. Or you may be a monthly giver and you say, I'm not going to keep giving more monthly, but I'll give a one-time gift right now for this Truth Team Week. Either way, that's a great way to do it. 800-347-5151.
Privileged to have with us now an individual we've had on the program a number of times. Walker Wildmon serves as the Vice President of Operations and also Public Policy Analyst for American Family Association, has his own radio program on American Family Radio. And Walker, welcome back to Point of View.
Hey, Kirby. Thanks for having me back on the program.
Always love to have you on. We have posted one article by Robert Knight, The Judges Who Would Be King. And then I decided to post another piece because it comes from one of your colleagues, Philip Hareggi, and he is an individual writing about these judges. And I might just mention that he serves as senior counsel for American Family Association Action Center for Judicial Renewal. And what we're, I think, dealing with, and I know you've been dealing with it on your own program, is the fact that during the first, 60 days at least we have so far, we've had 160 lawsuits that have been filed against Donald Trump. We've had more injunctions in February against the Trump administration than you had through 8 years under Barack Obama. So anybody that says, well, this is business as usual, it is not. And so either you come to one extreme and say, well, this is the most dangerous president ever, and that's why we have to have all these lawsuits, or you come to the other viewpoint, which simply says all these lawsuits are an attempt to tie down the president. So what's your perspective on that? Because I know you and Philip and others have been writing about this issue.
Yeah, that's right. The reality is that the Democrats got clobbered at the ballot box in November, and it was a very rounded rebuke of the Democrat Party, where you had President Trump carry not only the Electoral College, but he also carried the popular vote, which hasn't been done in several decades, over 2 decades, by any Republican. So the mandate was that the American people wanted President Trump in the White House, and they wanted his agenda to come to fruition. So the Democrats quickly realized the only institution left on the table that they have any control over is the judicial branch. And so this is why they engage in lawfare. And the lawfare that they've been engaging in is not new. The Democrat Party and the Marxists in our country have utilized the judicial system to override the will of the people on very controversial issues such as marriage, sanctity of life, etc. So this lawfare attempt at Trump is really nothing new, but the rate at which they are engaging in it is something new, where you have a record number of lawsuits and nationwide injunctions being issued against the Trump administration. So this is really counter democracy. It's counter our constitutional republic, and isn't what our founding fathers intended.
Well, and again, let's, if we can, I don't want to go through even a small portion of the 160 lawsuits, but give people a feel for that. You have some federal judges that have actually said that banning transgenders from military service, that needs to be challenged, denying federal funds to hospitals that actually are engaged in chemical or surgical mutilation. There have been others that have challenged whether or not you can remove federal employees that have been running diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Of course, one that we've done some commentaries on having to do with the Environmental Protection Agency, in which especially what was called the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, they were rushing money out the door so fast to organizations that had just been created, which had on their boards people that had served either in the Obama administration or the Biden administration. And one of the individuals was even caught saying on video it was like throwing gold bricks off the Titanic. So we're not just talking about a deportation issue or order. Mm-hmm. We're talking about the whole range of about 160 different lawsuits and various kinds of injunctions. And I've never seen anything like that before. I know you're younger, but still, those of us who have been around for a long time, this is completely unprecedented, which is a word that I don't always use lightly because it seems like we're always talking about something unprecedented, but this really is indeed unprecedented, isn't it?
Yeah, when you look at the types of issues that are being upheld or that are being hung up in the courts by these federal district courts, these are not issues that the Constitution or Congress has been unclear on. The military, for example, or federal agency funding and how to disperse those funds. Much of these decisions by the Trump administration are 100% within his legal purview. And there's nothing in the Constitution or within congressional statute that says otherwise. So it's not as if we are in uncharted waters where the president is doing things that he's never done before. That's just not the case. Now, there may be a few cases, a few issues of law that do need to be litigated at the Supreme Court. For example, can you deport an illegal immigrant without a hearing, without a judicial hearing, without a due process? That's an interesting question that does need to be litigated. Can the president do other things that have maybe never been done before, as far as birthright citizenship is
Right.
what it's called. So someone who's born in this country who isn't a citizen, are they automatically a citizen or are they not? What was the intent of our founding fathers and others when that was put in the Constitution? So there's things like that that are in some ways uncharted waters, but I would say 98%, 99% of what is being overruled at the judicial level is powers that the president has exercised for over 200 years. This
Right.
is not new powers that President Trump is all of a sudden exerting.
Things in the Constitution. We come back to the break. I might just mention a little bit more about this article by Philip because he gives some suggestions. But first of all, we just need to come back, Collin, and recognize as we're going to a break, this is a perfect time for somebody to make a phone call, and we still have a match on the table.
That's right, $1,000 dollar-for-dollar match, 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, pointofview.net. Want to thank Ed and Marie for giving a $100 gift. It becomes $200. Deborah in Michigan, a $25 gift becomes $50, and that's just the way it works. 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, or pointofview.net.
And you might be one of those ones saying, okay, what can be done? That's why I've posted this particular article here by an individual with the AFA Action Central, because he's talking about what judges could do, what Congress can do, and a number of things. We'll come back and talk about that. But I also want to get some perspective from Walker, because I've also posted some information about the fact that he attended a White House briefing for faith leaders and wanted to get some perspective from him as well. So as we go to a break, though, this is a time, if you've been waiting to make that phone call, this would be a great time to make the phone call, because there's enough time for you to easily make that phone call and not miss anything we'll be talking about. That number is 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. Dollar for dollar match on the table. Good way to double your gift, and I would encourage you to make that phone call or go to the website pointofview.net. We'll be right back.
Please do not miss this opportunity to make a difference in America. Join the Truth Team today. This week, our goal is to raise $150,000, something we've never done during Truth Team Week before. Our goal is ambitious because the need for biblical truth in this nation is dire. Few people have a biblical worldview anymore, but you can help change that by helping bring biblical truth to this nation. One of the best ways to support Point of View is by joining the team of supporters from around the nation who give monthly to keep truth on the air. Please, do not wait. Join the Truth Team today so we can restore a biblical worldview in America together. You can join now online at pointofview.net. or call us at 1-800-347-5151. A small investment makes a big difference. Pointofview.net and 800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this. You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again, is Kerby Anderson.
Back once again in studio with me, Collin Lambert, and we'll get back to Walker Wildmon in just a minute. Again, Vice President of Operations and Public Policy Analyst for American Family Association. We had a match on the table. How are we doing?
We did. We had a $1,000 dollar-for-dollar match on the table, and we met that. In fact, exceeded that, and we are so thankful to you for that. In fact, Peggy came in with a gift from Georgia, $360. That was doubled. And then Allison from Florida, a $1,000 gift, knocked out all that was left of that matching challenge. Allison, thank you for that. And it reminds me that $1,000 matching challenge, we are first of all thankful for the person who made that available to us to use, thankful for each person that gave, but it's a reminder of how quickly you can help us move down the line during Truth Team Week with some of those larger gifts. We know not everybody is able to give a gift of that size, but if you could give a gift of $1,000 or more, maybe a $2,500 gift or a $5,000 gift, if you're able to give one of those and it could be used for a matching challenge in the days ahead or the hours ahead, we could use that, and you see how quickly it moves us down the line, Kerby. But keep calling, keep giving, 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, or pointofview.net.
Let's get back to Walker Wildmon. And first of all, let me just say, I would also encourage you to support American Family Association. And of course, we even heard a little clip yesterday from Tim Wildmon. We're talking with Walker Wildmon. And one of the things I would point people to is this piece by Philip Hareggi, I think is how you say his name. And he is one of the individuals at American Family Association's Action Center for Judicial Renewal. And Walker, this is good because he helps us understand what could the courts do. Now, the Supreme Court can't really reach down to a pending case, but that can be appealed. So there's some things that can be done through the courts. And also Congress can actually begin to limit appellate jurisdiction and a number of other issues. So this is a very well-written, creative piece, which I know you've posted, so that people say, well, what can we do? There are some remedies that we can begin to consider, aren't there?
Yeah, there is, Kerby, and I do want to take a minute to recommend and to commend Point of View and the folks that yourself and others. So I want to encourage the listening audience to financially support and with your prayers support Point of View because of not only the content that we're talking about today, but each week on the program. So thank you, Kerby, for all you guys do. And as a ministry partner, I understand the importance of fundraising and being able to raise the funds to operate the ministry. So I do want to encourage your listening audience to support Point of View. But yeah, there's really two creative. One's a more short-term fix, an immediate fix, and then the other one takes Congress. But the first thing that needs to happen on this topic of judicial overreach and district court judges overstepping their authority is the Supreme Court needs to rein these lower court judges in. And they can do this through their rulings. They can take these challenges that are brought before them and use them to rebuke these lower court judges and really set a precedent that district court judges do not need to be overstepping their bounds and issuing nationwide injunctions. The second thing that can be done is Congress is the one that authorizes all of these federal court systems. So that the Constitution only states that there must be a U.S. Supreme Court, but it doesn't get into the granular details of how many other lower courts there must be and which districts they must cover, et cetera, et cetera. So Congress has the authority to pass legislation that either reins in authority from these lower courts or simply changes their districts or what areas that they can rule on. So there's a lot of leverage that Congress has to change how these courts operate, and that's fully constitutional. They can even remove district courts away and redelegate those jurisdictions. So Congress has a lot of area to work here.
And again, it even talks about the fact that we have in the past impeached judges. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, but that's another piece there. But I wanted to move on to another thing that I wanted to talk with you about. That is, we have a link to the X post from AFA Action and by you, because you had a chance to be with a lot of the Christian leaders there at the White House, and you've got a number of pictures that are posted so people can see that, you with some individuals, and Caroline Levitt and a variety of other people, Sebastian Gorka speaking, and many others, Matt Staver. And what that was an opportunity for you to hear from people in the administration, and I think you came away very encouraged. Can you share a little bit of that?
Yeah, so this was put on by the White House Faith Office, an office of which President Trump in his first term established that didn't exist before that. And what it does is it prioritizes the faith worldview, the Christian worldview, and allows believers to be at the table in these policy discussions. And so President Trump has made it important to put this office in the West Wing, which there's only about 13 or 14 actual offices in the West Wing. And so this is one of them, which is a very, very big deal and shows how much President Trump values having believers around him to provide him wise counsel and advice. And so we sat in about a 3-hour briefing. And look, Kirby, you've been to some of these meetings before. A lot of them are a lot of fluff, a lot of talk, and little action. But because sometimes that's the nature of politics, unfortunately. But this was actually very substantial. It was full of meat. It wasn't just milk. And there were multiple individuals, including Sebastian Gorka, talking about the fight against radical Islam and the threat to religious freedom. We had in Pam Bondi stopped by briefly. Leo Terrell, with the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, came in and talked about anti-Semitism and what the DOJ is doing on that front. We also actually talked about the subject of sanctity of life and the issues with IVF, and how President Trump needs to hear from the faith community about some of the moral and ethical issues surrounding IVF. So it was actually a very substantial conversation, lasted about 3 hours, and I was rather satisfied with how it went.
Well, again, I would encourage people to also listen to you on radio. At the Core is a great opportunity to hear some of the conversation taking place there as well. But one of the things I'm so excited about is some of these younger voices, and whether it's your voice or I mentioned Caroline Levitt or J.D. Vance on one side, but you've been looking at the other side, and that is AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or just down the road from where we're broadcasting today, Jasmine Crockett. And are these the new faces of the Democratic Party? And it does seem to me that we're getting some of these newer voices, some of these newer faces, but I'm a little bit concerned about some of the things that those individuals are talking about right now. What about you?
Yeah, it does appear that the Democrat Party leadership, whether that's Nancy Pelosi, whether it's Chuck Schumer, Obama, or Clinton, I don't know who really the leader is at this point, but it does appear that the leaders of the Democrat Party have chosen to platform, if you will, these far-left members of their party. And a lot of this has happened over the last decade or so, going back to the 2016 campaign, and then you have the squad that's commonly referred to, those left-wing members of Congress, such as AOC and others. But yeah, the Democrat Party has chosen to definitely prioritize and platform a lot of these far left. Many of them are actually Marxist or socialist. And it's surely an interesting decision, because I think it's going to actually have long-term negative consequences for the party. I mean, the Democrat Party is pretty much now controlled largely by these personalities. And they're even calling for people like Senator Schumer to step down, which is a big deal, considering how long he's been in power. So, yeah, I believe that they've definitely given over kind of the leadership of the party to this younger generation. but I really don't think it's going as well as they thought it would have.
I don't think so either. Well, first of all, I certainly appreciate all that you do on radio, Walker. I appreciate the work that you do behind the scenes as well as American Family Association, and it is always a delight to hear from you, and sometimes difficult because we're both doing radio at about the same time. But I do encourage our listeners that do hear our program through American Family Association and American Family Radio to not only listen to you, but listen to us when we are rebroadcast as well. And as always, thank you for joining us today here on Point of View.
Hey, thanks, Kerby. Appreciate the program. And once again, I encourage your listening audience to financially and prayerfully support the work of Point of View. And thank you so much for having me on the program.
Well, thank you. We're going to be talking next hour with Jerry Newcombe, but we need to encourage a few more people to join with us today.
Absolutely. Get involved right now, 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, pointofview.net. Every single person that gives a gift of any amount is going to get a bookmark that is tied to our theme, Anchored to Truth. It's Truth Team Week, and we are supported by your gifts, and this is an important week. A couple of times a year we come to you. This is an important week. We need your help to keep continuing to do what we're doing here on Point of View. 800-347-5151.
We'll take a break, come back with more. Again, you can go to the website pointofview.net, or again, 1-800-347-5151.
Point of View, keeping you anchored to truth.
But man, I tell you what, Kerby, as I think about what you do and the ministry of Point of View. It just always blesses me. First and foremost, your faithfulness. And to answer your question, why am I so passionate about being a partner with you, and why I would challenge and encourage your audience today to consider a greater level of partnership and participation than ever before, really is because of your passion, your enthusiasm, and you and your team's commitment to help people have a fully formed biblical worldview and to speak into the culture and the realities of our day through a gospel-centered perspective. And you do it with such a robust catalog of details, information, and I'm personally encouraged by it. And I would just say to all of your listeners, go all in with what Kerby and the team are doing. And this is the week, this is the day to make those commitments and so much more, because you'll be better for it. Your family, your ministry, your church, your business life, just your personal devotional life. It'll be better the more you participate with this incredible team.
Point of View, anchored to truth.
Jonathan Teague, who will be with us on Thursday in studio, individual that has become quite the expert on for example, Generation Y and Generation Z, was on Focus on the Family, and he's been on with Jim Dobson on his program, and of course been on with us as well. Individual that is a pastor at Prestonwood Baptist Church, and I certainly appreciate some of his comments, and so we'll look forward to hearing from him on Thursday. But in studio with me, Collin Lambert, and I thought for just a minute we'd give people an update on where we are in terms of our fundraising. Second day of Truth Team Week.
Yeah, it's day 2, and we have a big goal. We didn't mention it yet today, $150,000. This is an important goal because it has to do with exactly what we need to be able to continue Point of View. If you want to hear Point of View every day like you do right now, if you want to continue to have access to those resources online, if you want to continue to have guests that provide information you often never hear anybody else, we need your help this week. It's Truth Team Week. It just happens a couple of times a year, but we don't receive government grants. Kerby, you know this. There's no endowments handing out dollars. We're not going to have any money taken back from us because of Doge, because that money doesn't come from the government. It comes from you and your generosity. So we want to thank you for that. I want to quickly look at Galatians 6:6. It says, "The one who is taught the word is to share all good things with the one who teaches them." That's applying to a teacher, whether he be a pastor or a Sunday school teacher, an author, or a radio host like Kerby. What kind of benefits do you get from Kerby and his team every day through these booklets that come out and help you learn about what's happening in culture and what the Bible says about it? The Bible clearly says in Galatians 6 that the one who is teaching the word like Kerby and encouraging you in the faith, that you're to share all good things. Well, now is the time to do that. This week is the time to do that. It's Truth Team Week. We want you to be a partner in Truth Team Week. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. pointofview.net. It's a great time to get involved. And Kerby, if you've never given before, now's a great time to do that.
I would certainly agree with that, and we hope that we would hear from some of you that have been listeners for a while, and this is your first time to give. You heard me ask a question with Walker about the younger voices, and if you've listened to Point of View any length of time, you know, for example, tomorrow we'll have Liberty with us, Liberty McCarter. She, of course, is also doing the podcast, Know Why Podcast. I just mentioned Jonathan Teague and then Chelsea Uman and some of those individuals, which maybe give you some encouragement, because just a minute ago we talked about Jasmine Crockett. And for those of us that live in Texas right now, we know that Jasmine Crockett is a member of Congress, and she said some pretty disparaging things about the governor of the state of Texas, Greg Abbott. And if you're not familiar, he's in a wheelchair. He was a jogger, but was actually hit by a tree and is paralyzed from the waist down. So he's a paraplegic. Well, she referred to him as Governor Hot Wheels, and she's got a couple other things. We've talked about off air, some of the mouth that this woman has. And you after a while go, what is the future to this country with these kind of leaders? And again, what is so interesting is right now, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders are traveling around promoting socialism. Jasmine Crockett, by the way, she She is a multimillionaire. Most people don't know that, worth about $10 million. Bernie Sanders is a multimillionaire. As a matter of fact, this is an interesting little statistic, Collin. If you look at the American population, only about 1% of Americans are in the category of millionaire. I won't quibble about whether it's 1 or 2%, but it's in single digits in terms of percentage. 50% of the people in Congress are millionaires.
Wow.
And the other 50% are going to be because they have access to inside information,
Absolutely.
which if you and I did it, we would be actually accused and convicted of insider trading. And so I think it's just a recognition that what's the future of America? Well, and some people say, Kerby, when are you going to retire? I don't know if they're trying to get rid of me. I don't think so. But we see these other younger voices coming underneath that, and that should be an encouragement to hear from a Walker Wildmon and a Jonathan Teague and Tomorrow Liberty and others who are really helping to speak to that generation in the 21st century.
It is exciting, and I love the fact, Kerby, that you've made these moves to bring in younger voices. Your voice is a steady, calming voice in the midst of a chaotic culture, but at the same time, it is wonderful to see some of these young people that you've engaged that are part of the program that give us an idea of what the next generation could be and how important the information is that you share day in and day out to make it possible for people to learn about what's happening in the culture, what the Bible says about it, and how we should interact with that as followers of Christ. You make that possible, though, as you listen and as you give, you make it possible. 800-347-5151. You make it possible for us to be able to be here each and every day for those wonderful resources that are online and available at pointofview.net. You can also give there at pointofview.net. Look for the big banner that says Anchored to Truth, and you click on that. It just takes a couple of minutes to fill out, but only a couple of times a year do we come to you and ask you to participate. This is one of those times, and it is critically important to the future of Point of View that you get involved. 800-347-5151.
As a preview, let me just mention a little bit later, we're going to have Jerry Newcombe on, and he's got a piece on oligarchy, because right now we're hearing that word oligarchy, and of course Bernie Sanders is the one talking about that, and he points out some of the irony of some of that. And then we'll get into, as we always do, a little bit of America's godly heritage, because that's another issue that we're really passionate about, Collin. The younger generation, and even some of us old people, don't know our history, and it's something that we need to understand in terms of the Christian foundations of America. If Christianity was very important in the founding of this republic, don't you think Christianity would be important in the maintenance of this republic? So lots of things to look forward to in the next hour. But as we go to a break, this is a perfect opportunity if you've been waiting to say, I really would like to support this ministry. I appreciate the news, information, and commentary I hear every day, and I really want to plan for the future. Pay it forward, right?
Absolutely. That's a great opportunity. Pay it forward and be a part of the legacy. Somebody gave so that you might hear Point of View today. You're able to give so that your kids and grandkids can benefit from Point of View in the years ahead. If you're a monthly giver, a reminder that you could increase your monthly gift. Maybe you're at a point you could add $5, $10, $15, $20 to your monthly gift, or give a one-time gift on top of your monthly gift. That would be super helpful. Again, everybody receives one of these wonderful bookmarks, Anchored to Truth, and we've got different giving levels for the $30 a month, $50 a month, and of course the Igloo Cooler for $100 per month or more. Each and every person, it's just our way of saying thank you. Here's the number, 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151.
Well, again, we're going to take a break, and please, let's, if we can, see if we can get 5 phone calls in right now, and that would be an opportunity as we start the top of the hour. We'll see if we can bring in maybe the president of Point of View, Warren Kelly, get an update on what's going on there, and maybe he has some other announcements for us. So looking forward to that as well. So great time to call, 800-347-5151, and we'll be back with Jerry Newcombe coming up in this next hour right after this.
Truth Team Week is officially underway, and we have an ambitious goal: raise $150,000. You can help by joining the Truth Team today. Consider for a moment the news sources available to most Americans. Are the media voices that we hear each day generally biased or trustworthy? Do they keep us informed or panicked? Are they deceived by the secularism of our times or anchored to biblical wisdom? Well, you and I both know the answer to those questions, and that is why America needs you to act today. America needs Point of View. By joining the Truth Team, you can help ensure that Americans continue hearing a voice that is trustworthy, grounded in facts over hysteria, and most importantly, anchored to biblical truth. Join today at pointofview.net or by calling 1-800-347-5151. Pointofview.net and 1-800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this.
I really appreciate your program. I don't get to listen to it every day because I have to work, but it's really a blessing to me and to all of us.
Everything you do each day to inform Christian families and our community about the things we can do, and just the way you're so informative. I listen to you daily and love you guys and appreciate you so much.
I do appreciate Point of View and what you folks are doing. You really are doing a great job to educate and to help Christian folks do a better job to honor Christ in all that we do.
I just appreciate all you guys do. I mean, I learned so much, and it's amazing what you teach that I say to other people, and they look at me like, where did you hear that? So I appreciate you guys. So thank you for all you do.
I just turned your program on, and I want to just let you know how much I appreciate just getting the truth out.
Point of View Radio Talk Show.
Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View continues right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Thank you for joining us. Second hour of the second day of Truth Team Week. And just in a few minutes, we'll be talking with our good friend Jerry Newcombe about oligarchy versus the Democratic Republic. That's kind of the word of the week here. And it's one that Bernie Sanders has been using quite a bit. And then a little bit of history, this whole history of the Liberty Bell and freedom and liberty and some things like that. I think you'll really appreciate that teaching. And in studio with me, of course, is Collin Lambert as we talk about some of the needs that we have here in the ministry and our encouragement to you to support this ministry. Well, we thought we would bring the president of Point of View, Warren Kelly, in here to give us an update on how we're doing today.
It's been a little bit slow this morning, this afternoon, I guess, depending on where you are. In Alaska, it's still in the morning, but everywhere else, I think it's afternoon now. So we do need to hear from you. We could really use your help. And I do have an announcement I want to share with you. But before I do that, can I tell a quick story? A few years ago, there was a young lady. Her name was Rebecca, and she was a young lady who had just gotten married. Her husband got transferred to Houston, Texas. She didn't know anybody in Houston. She didn't know what she was doing there. Why, God, have you put me in this place? And was struggling to kind of find where she was going with her life, what she was doing. And one afternoon, she happened to cross Point of View on her radio dial. And she started listening, and she talked about what a tremendous impact that it made on her life. It began to change the way she was looking at what was happening in our world, what was happening in our country. And that young lady, a few years later, became the vice president of the Heritage Foundation. And I'm sure, Collin, you know who the Heritage Foundation is. You've heard AOC and Bernie Sanders and Nancy Pelosi talk about how evil they are in their 2025 project and those kind of things. But somebody back then made a gift and helped to make it possible for Rebecca to hear the show. And that gift made it possible for her to go on and become vice president of the Heritage Foundation, the things that she does, the books that she's written, all of those things. And maybe you're thinking, my gift wouldn't do too much, might not make that much of a difference. But let me say, if you made a $20 gift today, that's enough to provide the program every day for a year to one listener, to one Rebecca out there somewhere. So your gift really can make a difference. It can change a life. And so we encourage you to give. And in keeping with Rebecca actually became the first person ever
I remember that
to make a matching challenge on Point of View. And we have another donor who has, again, offered up a gift today of $2,000 as a matching challenge, same amount that Rebecca did a few years ago. And this donor wants to encourage you to give and to give generously to Point of View and to make a difference in our nation.
In just a few minutes, we're going to hear from Michelle Bachmann. There's another individual who was interviewed and influenced by Point of View, but a dollar-for-dollar match.
What a great opportunity to give. And whether you're giving for the very first time or you are just giving out of the abundance of love for Point of View and what you get from Point of View, also want to think about what Warren just shared about somebody else. You might be giving and somebody else benefits in a way that could change their lives and could change the lives of the people of this country. You just never know the impact of that gift. But we do know this. Right now, your gift is going to be doubled. So start right now calling, clicking through 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, pointofview.net. Click on the big Anchored to Truth banner. It'll take you right to the form. You can fill it out quickly. But again, right now, every gift is doubled. Take advantage of it.
You know, Warren, you oftentimes say I could just stay here all day telling stories, but I can at least give you the categories. You know, we know people that run for school board. We know people that run for city council. We know people that run for the legislature. We know people that run for Congress. We know people run for president. Matter of fact, one of those, Mike Huckabee's going through a confirmation hearing right now. Rebecca Hagelin was, of course, vice president of the Heritage Foundation. Michelle Bachmann, we're going to hear something from her in just a minute, running for the presidency. We have others that started pregnancy resource centers. We have others that started Christian schools. We have others that decided to homeschool. I'm just giving you the general categories, and you can give examples, multiple examples in every one of those categories, can't you?
You mentioned we had the endorsement piece from Vicki Garza yesterday, who listened to Point of View, said that the program just totally changed her life, and she went on to launch a campus ministry on a major university here in the United States that has impacted the lives of thousands of students there.
And again, we've talked about pay it forward. That's what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, again, somebody has provided funding so that you can be listening today. Would you consider providing funding that could then be used so that your kids, your grandkids, your community is impacted in the days ahead? We can't do it without you. It is listener-supported radio. You make it possible, and right now, because of this generous donor, you have an opportunity to take advantage of a dollar-for-dollar match. You give $30, it becomes $60. You give $30 a month, it becomes $60 a month. You give $1,000, it will become $2,000. That's how easy it is. And right now is the time to call 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
Warren, I thought we might also talk about some of the material and some of the gifts that we like to send. I know people don't give to get, but especially right next to you right now is the coaster set, which is just so well done.
Very
and
nice.
We'll show that again on camera in case people can't see it. Of course, you can see it on the website. And then we, of course, have the igloo down cooler and a few other things that we make available. But one that seems to have really struck a nerve is everybody loves those booklets, don't they?
Yes, they do. I hear that so many times that, you take a subject that is fairly complex, hard to understand, and instead of having to read, multiple volumes or books or whatever to learn about that topic, you distill it all down into one little booklet. Takes about 10 minutes to read and gives you a really good understanding of that subject. And there's also additional resources. If you want to learn more about that, Kerby has a list of additional resources where you can learn more about those topics. So great education opportunity in those booklets.
And if you're giving at the $30 a month or more level, those booklets are coming to you along with Outlook Magazine. That is our gift to you again for participating at that level. And again, right now, you've got the dollar-for-dollar match on the board up to $2,000. 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, or pointofview.net.
What do we do if right now some people call and they get a busy signal or they're on hold? Is there something that we can tell them about?
Oh, you can also always go to the website. It's pointofview.net. There's a big banner that says Join the Truth Team right in the middle of the page. You can click on that, and that will also let you see pictures of the premiums that you've been talking about. But again, if you get a busy signal, hold on for just a minute. Try it again, and we'll have an operator ready for you in just a moment. And they'll be there until about 9 o'clock Central Time tonight.
So again, those are great opportunities right now to give us a call or go to the website, pointofview.net.
Robert in South Carolina, first one to take advantage of the dollar-for-dollar match. He gave a gift of $300, and that becomes $600. Robert, great job. And again, maybe you've never given before. Now is a great time to give as well, because you can have your very first gift to Point of View doubled. 800-347-5151.
Well, the word that everybody seems to be using, at least on the Democratic side, is oligarchies. So we're going to try to understand what that's all about and see some of the irony and maybe even the hypocrisy there. But then also a little bit of education about America's godly heritage. We certainly need that as well. So as we go to a break, perfect time to call. Don't want to miss all the great insight that we're going to get in just a few minutes from Jerry Newcombe. 800-347-5151. Of course, pointofview.net. We'll be right back.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
John West of Discovery Institute was on my radio program recently to talk about his book, Stockholm Syndrome Christianity. To understand his conclusions, you need to remember what the Stockholm Syndrome means. The phrase comes from a bank robbery in Stockholm, Sweden that took place in 1973 when an escaped convict and his accomplice took 4 bank employees hostage who began to bond with the criminals and started to view the police and the government as enemies. John West asked a powerful question. What if American culture isn't collapsing because of crusading secularists? What if it's failing because many leading Christians identify more with secular elites than with their fellow believers? His book catalogs many examples. One chapter describes how Stockholm Syndrome Christians have infected the pastorate of churches, leading to a dismissive view of the Bible. He quotes a pastor who wants to discard the Old Testament. He details how Stockholm Syndrome Christians promote a diminished role of God in creation. He discusses the rise of scientific materialism and also talks about Christians who seem to be evangelizing for Charles Darwin. As you might imagine, he also describes how Stockholm Syndrome Christians have damaged our understanding of sex and gender. This has led to a redefining of marriage and the abandoning of biblical standards. He concludes with a call to wisdom, a call to action, and a call to faithfulness. He also includes a website with an online assessment that will help you diagnose you, your church, and others. He also provides discussion questions and a curated list of resources. So if you want to diagnose Stockholm Syndrome Christianity and provide a remedy, this is a book and a website that you will need. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
Go deeper on topics like you just heard by visiting pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net. Point of View, keeping you anchored to truth.
It's such an honor to be on Point of View. It's from the time I was a brand new bride 32 years ago. I've listened to the Point of View radio show. It's a trusted news source, but what it gives more than anything is the real news that all of us need, and that's the gospel of Jesus Christ. You are faithful to treasure the gospel and faithfully hand it to the next generation. That's something that Point of View does.
Point of View, anchored to truth.
A little testimony from Michelle Bachman. Going to hear from our good friend Dr. Jerry Newcombe in just a minute about oligarchy and the Liberty Bell and a few other things. But first of all, Collin Lambert, we have a match on the table. How are we doing?
We do. It's a $2,000 dollar-for-dollar match, and Linda in Georgia just called and gave a gift of $100. That becomes $200. Brenda gave a $150 gift. That becomes $300. Lynn in New Mexico, you gave a gift of $100. That becomes $200. And Ronald in Georgia, your $100 $100 gift is doubled as well. So far, $750 in, $1,250 of that dollar-for-dollar match remaining at 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, or pointofview.net. Take advantage of it while we have it.
As I mentioned just a few minutes ago, if by chance you get a busy signal, call back again, or if you go into queue, just wait a little bit because it won't take long to process that. But we welcome back to the microphone an individual we've had so many times, Dr. Jerry Newcombe, Executive Director of the Providence Forum, also serves as the senior producer and on-air host of Truths That Transform, which is, of course, the flagship television broadcast of D. James Kennedy Ministries. And Jerry, as always, great to have you on the program.
Oh, thank you, Kerby.
The word of the day, because of Bernie Sanders' oligarchy. And so we have posted your piece here on, again, this 83-year-old senator from Vermont. This is really scary because we have this oligarchy of billionaires. You point out that it's a little ironic and maybe even hypocritical that he's saying that. Tell us more.
Well, Bernie Sanders has done quite well in a capitalist system, ours, earning lots and lots of money, railing against capitalism. And, he owns a few houses, and it's just amazing how well he's done on this. Now, when you listen to him, he's very compelling, and he stokes the politics of envy, if you will. And, a lot of people wish we could have more money or whatever, but a lot of people working hard to make a lot of money and so forth. But it's really amazing because at the end of the day, Bernie Sanders' heroes are ultimately communists. The man actually had his honeymoon in 1988 in the Soviet Union before the whole, scheme collapsed.
Yes.
In the Soviet Union, that was the hotbed of communism for more than 70 years or about 70 years. And so it's just crazy. He's held up Fidel Castro as a great hero. As I pointed out in my piece, I quoted Paul Kanger, Dr. Paul Kanger of Grove City College. He has done so much research, excellent research on the whole issue of communism. And he said, look, in Castro's Cuba, basically the 1%, less than 1%, the Castro brothers, they were doing quite fine, thank you. They were literally multi-millionaires. Meanwhile, the people on the island were doing very poorly, and they still are. And it's just incredible. I don't know how anybody with a brain and a heart can extol the system of Marxism. Now, maybe that would be the case if you lived in the 1880s or 1890s or something like that, and you hadn't seen what we have seen in the 20th century. In fact, Kerby, is it Collin?
Yes.
Collin? I have a big book in my office. It was given to me by Gary Lane, who's done work with CBN and also work with Voice of the Martyrs. And it's called The Black Book of Communism. Have you ever seen that book? The Black Book of Communism, published in the late 1990s by Harvard University Press. All it does is it basically catalogs the crimes in the 20th century alone of the communists alone. So it doesn't even include the National Socialists, as in, Germany and so forth. But it's horrendous. The 20th century has seen so much bloodshed because of that wrong and bad ideology, which is built on the sand of Marxists and his co-author Engels' teaching. And the teaching was basically that man is basically good. The structures are bad. We got to tear down the structures, make it a total, impose the workers' paradise. And eventually, because, we will have reached the millennium effectively through the workers' paradise, then the reins of government will wither away of their own accord. Now, in contrast to that, the founding fathers of America said, no, man is sinful. We have to build this society on the understanding that we have to divide power. You can't have too much power in the hands of too few. And this is the irony of Bernie Sanders going around speaking against, Musk and Trump and basically calling them members of an oligarchy. Oligarchy simply means the rule of a few. Mm-hmm. And the founding fathers absolutely wrote against oligarchy and against monarchy. Instead, they enabled we the people. And if you read the Constitution, you see that they were very careful to divide power, because all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And as James Madison, one of the key architects of the Constitution, said, all men having power ought to be distrusted.
You know, one of the things that you've got in front of you there, Collin, is our book on a biblical view on socialism, which goes through this long catalog of list of the various countries that have been a failure. But let's come back to that one on James Madison, because in Federalist Paper number 47, you have that quote, but also in Federalist Paper number 10, he talks about ambition needs to rival ambition. And that brings up a very good question, Jerry. Where did James Madison get these ideas? Where did they come from?
Well, John Eidsmoe, who's a great law professor, author of the book Christianity and the Constitution, and I'm sure he's been a longtime guest on your program as well as the Coral Ridge Hour and so forth. I love interviewing him. Anyway, he points out in his book Christianity and the Constitution that James Madison, as a loyal son of Virginia, would have been expected to go to William and Mary for his studies, university. And instead, and this is at a day, when things were society was much more stratified and so forth. But instead, he uprooted and went all the way up to Princeton, New Jersey, to study there at the College of New Jersey, which later became called Princeton. And he studied under the Reverend John Witherspoon, who was a brilliant Presbyterian minister from Scotland. Benjamin Rush, Dr. Benjamin Rush, another founding father, went over to Scotland, recruited him, brought him over, and Witherspoon ended up becoming the founding father that ended up training so many other founding fathers, and certainly the most famous of those founding fathers that he trained was James Madison. Gave them a thoroughly, quite frankly, Calvinist biblical worldview, and the sinfulness of man is at the heart of that. The idea that that we can't be trusted. Look, you might even have a really, really good leader at one point, like George Washington. I think virtually every American just about, would recognize, well, that's not true today. But anyway, many throughout the history of the country have recognized George Washington as a good leader, a man looking out for the best interests of the citizens and so forth. And yet, they're not always going to have a good person at the helm of the country, and that's why the founding fathers, knowing the sinfulness of man, they created such a structure so that we could even weather the storm of bad leadership. And they built a system in where every 2 years we can replace our congressperson if that's needed.
Let's, if we can, just since we're going to a break, just again, Collin, remind people that we have a match on the table, and we do have some people on the phones, but there's probably an open phone available, isn't there?
There is, and it's a $2,000 dollar-for-dollar match. I want to thank Roland in Georgia giving a $250 gift. That becomes $500. Jay in New Mexico gave $400. That becomes $800. Ricky just gave a gift of $15. That becomes $30. So as you see, it's easy math. Your gift is doubled right now up to that $2,000. We'll give you an update coming up here in a few minutes of where we are. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. Pointofview.net.
As a matter of fact, if you go to pointofview.net, you can not only give, but you can see the first article, Oligarchy versus a Democratic Republic, and then one on the Liberty Bell. Some stupid bell embodies American freedom. We'll talk about that joke in just a minute. And so if you want to know more about Jerry Newcombe, we have information about him. If you want to see some of his articles, we have that as well. And if you would like to give right now, and I hope that you would, we've made it very easy for you to go to pointofview.net, or of course you can give us a call, 800-347-5151, 1-800-347-5151. We'll be right back.
Please do not miss this opportunity to make a difference in America. Join the Truth Team today. This week, our goal is to raise $150,000, something we've never done during Truth Team Week before. Our goal is ambitious because the need for biblical truth in this nation is dire. Few people have a biblical worldview anymore, but you can help change that by helping bring biblical truth to this nation. One of the best ways to support Point of View is by joining the team of supporters from around the nation who give monthly to keep truth on the air. Please do not wait. Join the Truth Team today so we can restore a biblical worldview in America together. You can join now online at pointofview.net or call us at 1-800-347-5151. A small investment makes a big difference. Pointofview.net and 800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this. You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Back once again, second day and again second hour, and we'll be talking again with Dr. Jerry Newcombe in just a minute about his piece on the Liberty Bell. One of the things we want to educate all of us on in terms of America's godly heritage. I think you'll find this interesting, but just before we do that, Collin, give us an update because we had a match on the table. I think we still have a match on the table.
We've got some dollars available. It's a $2,000 dollar-for-dollar match, and we still have $585 remaining. So right now, any gift will be doubled up to $585. And again, we're so thankful for that person who gave the $2,000 to make it possible to encourage you to give and get your gift doubled right now. Again, $585 up to that amount can be doubled right now at 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, or pointofview.net.
Jerry, let's see if we can come to your next piece. We've also posted it on our website at pointofview.net. You tell the story of your teenage daughter at that time was on a choir tour in Philadelphia, talks to her mom and said, well, tell Dad that some stupid bell with a crack on it is what we're looking at right now, trying to get a rise out of you. But that stupid bell is known as the Liberty Bell, and it has a Bible verse on it. And I think if we start understanding some of the history, it's a very significant story, and especially as you begin to talk about the fact that some people can see a replica of it in the Museum of the Bible. But tell us more.
Sure. And by the way, the context of that where my daughter was griping, it was that she said, Mom, we were so close to the second largest mall in America, and said, our choir director, makes us go see some stupid bell with a crack in it, But she knew she was trying to get a rise out of me later, when I heard about it, and she did. But anyway, so it's kind of a family joke. I just let other people know about it. But basically, that bell was created in 1751, and they created it in Philadelphia, and they had it cast, in England. By the way, that's true for a lot of things that the colonists had made here, and so forth. They had to have it done even over in England. I mean, for example, even during the war, the American War for Revolution, there was a shortage of Bibles, and part of the whole thing is virtually all the Bibles were being printed in England. And so when we had these hostile relations, Congress actually voted to approve the printing of a Bible here in America. But I digress. Okay, it's just sort of, it's just an example.
Yes.
The milieu was much more Christian than people realize, and it was Christian ideas that created all this. So in 1751, when they were creating a bell for the State House of Philadelphia, of Pennsylvania, right there in what we now call Independence Hall, they decided to celebrate the 50th anniversary of a very important document from William Penn from 1701, the Charter of Liberties. And one of the main points of that charter was that here in this settlement of William Penn, people would be free to worship the Lord any way they wanted to. People would not be harassed or whatever. They would not be forced to conform to any kind of specific religious, point of view or whatever. Now, this is all done, basically within a Christian framework. And it was expected that people would be, attending church. And even as late as 1776 and beyond, when people were to run for office in Pennsylvania, it was expected that they subscribe to the doctrine that they believed that the Old and the New Testament were, from God. They were the Holy Bible. They basically they professed to believe in the Holy Bible and what everything it teaches. So you think about that. I mean, that's just amazing. But this document of the Charter of Liberties from William Penn, who was a Quaker minister as well as an attorney or trained as a lawyer and so forth, But he had been harassed as a Quaker in his native England, and he didn't like that, and he wanted to build this entire colony on the idea of the golden rule of Jesus. In fact, he even put Matthew 7:12 on the front of one of his major writings, one of his major charters and so forth, which is, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, for this sums up the law and the prophets, the golden rule. And bottom line is, the Pennsylvania authorities in 1751 said, let's celebrate this. So then the only thing they had written on the bell, beyond the maker of the bell, Bass and Stowe of England, and anyway, they put a Bible verse, which is from Leviticus chapter 25, verse 10, proclaim liberty throughout the land and to all the inhabitants thereof. And so this bell, later when we declared independence, the story is told that they tolled the bell on July 8th or 9th, I forget which, of 1776. So just a few days after, by voice vote, they approved on July 4th the final wording of the Declaration of Independence, which declares independence from Great Britain, but dependence upon Almighty God. 4 times God is mentioned in the Declaration of Independence. It's our national birth certificate. And so the bell came to be symbolized with that freedom. And then in the early 1800s, it came to be associated with the whole abolition movement.
Yes.
That there should be freedom of the slaves throughout the United States of America. And that's ultimately where it got the name Liberty Bell. And Dr. Peter Lillback, around 2001, so in order to celebrate the 300th anniversary of this revolutionary Charter of Liberties from William Penn, the founder of Pennsylvania, decided he wanted to make and have Providence Forum make. He founded Providence Forum. Later on, gave it generously to Coral Ridge Ministries. I'm privileged to be a part of it. I'm actually the executive director, but it's exciting. So anyway, he had a bell, a replica bell made. He had it made in the very same foundry.
Isn't that amazing?
In England. It is amazing. It was pretty expensive, too. And then the block of wood above the bell, I think they called it the yoke, the block of wood is actually made from remaining wood from the last known Liberty tree, which that's in the story in and of itself. But anyway, in 1999, Hurricane Hugo, or was it Floyd? Anyway, Floyd, I guess, knocked down the last known Liberty tree in Annapolis, Maryland, and Providence Forum was able to get the remaining wood and, more importantly, the seeds, the DNA saplings and so forth from that tree. So even as we speak, there's a nursery in Oregon where they're literally growing Liberty trees based on the DNA from that last known Liberty tree. But anyway, Dr. Lillback had that bell sent around to different places, different conferences at Coral Ridge Ministries. In fact, at Coral Ridge Church, we had the bell back about 20 years ago when we had one of our conferences. Maybe you spoke at one of those. I don't remember, but it was the Reclaiming America for Christ conference in Fort Lauderdale, and it was a big deal. It was a big deal. And so anyway, eventually when the Museum of the Bible got established, around that time, then Dr. Lillback had that bell donated as kind of essentially on permanent loan, if you will, at the Museum of the Bible, so people can go there. And just recently, Dr. Rob Pacienza, who is he's the speaker now on the Coral Ridge program. He's the senior pastor of Coral Ridge Presbyterian Church. He's the CEO and president of the ministry and everything. So he was leading a class of about 100 students at Westminster Academy. He oversees that school. Dr. Kennedy founded it and so forth. And we got permission that they could actually ring the bell while visiting the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C.
Great story.
It's not something everybody can do, but anyway, it's a real, authentic bell, and it's right there at the Museum of the Bible. Please make sure if you go to D.C. to spend some time to go to that museum. It's fantastic for all kinds of reasons.
Well,
And I
again,
think the Liberty
that
Bell is one of
article
them.
is there for you to read, and of course, we gave you a brief summary of it. But first of all, I just want to say, Jerry, thank you for, first of all, writing these articles. Thank you for being such a great supporter of Point of View. And Collin, we still have some opportunities for people to give.
We do. We started with a $2,000 dollar-for-dollar match on the board. It's down to $450 remaining, so take advantage of that right now because we're in the final moments of this hour's program. Thanks to Monica in Georgia, a $10 gift becomes $20. Sharon in California, your $100 is doubled to $200, and we'd love to hear from you. 800-347-5151, pointofview.net, $450 left to get your gift doubled. Call or click in right now.
Again, Dr. Jerry Newcombe, we'll let him go, but let me just mention this would be a great story to tell around the dinner table. So again, that material's on our website. You can go to pointofview.net and read either of these articles and also give, or you can give us a call, 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151.
Point of View, keeping you anchored to truth.
I think this radio show really shaped the beginning ideas that I had about Scripture. I came from a very apolitical denomination. You know, my dad was a pastor growing up, but we never talked about voting, or they never had a yard sign in their yard, or, you know, we never really talked about the issues in our culture. It was more, you know, basic Bible stories, etc. So people don't realize the critical nature of people actually teaching the Word of God based on what's happening on the culture. And so I want to encourage our pastors and ministry leaders out there that are listening to us. You take Kerby's stuff, take the stuff that you're learning from Point of View and use it in your congregations. But this is much needed, and even more so now, 30 years later, Kerby.
Point of View, anchored to truth.
Bunny Pounds with Christians Engaged, Pray, Vote, and Engaged. And we've talked with her in many cases, and another individual who was profoundly influenced by Point of View. Collin, we're just coming down to the end of the second day this week. What's going on?
We have a wonderful friend who has set aside $2,000 for a dollar for dollar match. So far, $1,550 of that has been used, $450 remaining right now. And we don't want to leave any of this on the table, so we need somebody to call, maybe with a gift of $1 a day, one of those $360 or $30 a month gifts. Someone with $100 could add to that, and we'd take care of this last $450. Right now, your gifts are doubled up to that $450 mark. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. And want to remind you as well, if you've never given to Point of View before, it's Truth Team Week. We want you to be a partner. If you've only listened for a short amount of time, or you've been listening for decades, this is not anything to heap guilt. It's just, hey, here's an opportunity, and you can get your dollars doubled right now. However long you've been listening, we'd love to see 5 or 10 people who've never given before, and there's still time this hour for you to call in. Here's the number, 800-347-5151, or click in at pointofview.net. Your dollars will be doubled there as well.
Let me just mention that our last article here comes from the editors of the Wall Street Journal. They call it The Tale of Two States on Job Creation. California had a jobs recession in 2024. Texas had a jobs boom. They go on to say the Democrats in Sacramento can't blame Donald Trump or wildfires in January for the employment growth. And one of the things that I thought was so interesting is this graph. So I'm going to have Steve put it up there for those of you watching online, because this actually shows the difference between Texas, which is the blue line, and then California is kind of a, if you will, kind of a gray line. And first of all, you have the total jobs, which is just enormous for Texas and very paltry for California. And then it has 9 different categories: construction, manufacturing, information, finance, business, leisure, retail, government, healthcare, social assistance. And you can see that on those 9, 7 of the 9, there was actually major job losses in some cases in California, and then 8 of those 9, there were job gains in California, which I think illustrates again what we need to really turn the economy around. And the other way to look at this, Collin, is just look at the number of announcements just in the last couple of weeks of various major businesses and others coming to the United States. Hyundai announced a $20 billion investment in the United States. Volkswagen is considering shifting the production of their high-end Audi and Porsche brands to the United States. Honda is expected to produce the next generation Civic hybrid model in Indiana. You've got all the way down to Volvo and Rolls-Royce and Nissan. Then you come down even to things not just in the auto sector. Project Stargate wanting to spend $500 billion, $500 billion in terms of open AI. Apple announcing a $500 billion investment in U.S. manufacturing and trade. NVIDIA investing hundreds of billions of dollars in U.S.-based manufacturing. We know what creates jobs. We know what is good for the American worker. And whether you look at what is happening comparing 2 of the largest states, or if you look at what's happening in the United States, those are some very good stories. Good news that oftentimes you don't hear except on maybe something like Point of View.
Absolutely. That's one of the things you can count on from Point of View, is news that you're not going to hear anywhere else. I guarantee you most people are never going to hear the Liberty Bell story separate of Point of View. And it's a great story, and it's really something that we can learn from. But you're going to get accurate news. You're going to get trustworthy information, and most importantly, a biblical perspective anchored to God's Word. That's what you're going to get each day on Point of of View. If Point of View has made a difference in your life, the life of your family, if your kids are learning from it, I want to encourage you to give back. This is the time of year that we ask you to do that. It's Truth Team Week. We want you to be a partner with Point of View, and you can do that right now. We have just $350 remaining of this dollar-for-dollar match. We want to thank Paula of California. She just gave $100. That becomes $200. Again, $350 remaining. We have just a little time left in this hour. 800-347-5151. I'd love to see a handful of folks go to the phone right now, Kerby, and pick it up and dial 800-347-5151. You can also go to pointofview.net, click on the big banner that says Anchored to Truth. You're going to find out right there. Maybe you could give a monthly gift or a one-time gift. We could use a couple of leadership gifts. We're a little behind where we'd like to be right now. Maybe a leadership gift of $1,000 or $2,000. Just as we were going off the air yesterday, we had a number of gifts of $100 a month, a $2,000 gift. Maybe you could give one of those larger gifts, but every size gift counts. Everybody gets one of our wonderful bookmarks, and depending on the size of your gift, you also have an opportunity to get some of these other fabulous gifts of thank you, the wood Point of View coaster set, the Igloo Seadrift Snap Down Cooler, which is $100 more per month. However you'd like to do it, we'd like to make it easy on you, and we have volunteers answering the phones right now. 800-347-5151. And
since we are going off the air in just a few minutes, I might just mention we will take those phone calls after we go off the air. Let me also, again, point you to some of the material that we've made available today as we talked about whether it's oligarchy, whether it's the Liberty Bell, whether it's the issue of what we could do with some of these judges that are actually closing down and really harming, I think, the possibility of expanding what is happening in this country, or even this comparison, which I thought was very interesting from the Wall Street Journal, of the tale of two cities on job creation or these growing number of investments. We want to be an encouragement to you. Again, we want to be honest about some things that have happened, and we started the program by talking about some of those problems. But at the same time, we want you to know that there are some great pieces of news that maybe you'll only hear at Point of View, and your investment in this ministry allows us to continue to do that.
So many tools and resources on the website. Kerby tells you that throughout the program. Here's an article you can read. Here's a tipful bit of information. Here's a website we're going to link you to. All of that provided. You've got the booklets. If you give it a $30 a month or more level, you got these wonderful booklets like socialism, inflation, critical race theory, so many different topics, and they're all from a biblical perspective. Takes about 10 minutes to read them. They're all super great. $300 left. That's it, Kerby. Let's see somebody take care of that here at the end. $300 dollar-for-dollar match remaining. You can do that at 800-347-5151.
Tomorrow you're going to hear from some of the younger voices, Liberty and Chelsea. Of course, we'll also be talking about the issue of abortion. Topics we do not avoid. We go into and try to address those as important issues that you need to know about. So as we go off the air, can I ask a few more of you, maybe 5 more calls? Anchored to Truth, 1-800-347-5151. Of course, the website, pointofview.net. Megan, thank you for engineering the program. Steve, thank you for producing it. And we will see you back here tomorrow right here on Point of View.
Truth Team Week is officially underway, and we have an ambitious goal: raise $150,000. You can help by joining the Truth Team today. Consider for a moment the news sources available to most Americans. Are the media voices that we hear each day generally biased or trustworthy? Do they keep us informed or panicked? Are they deceived by the secularism of our times or anchored to biblical wisdom? Well, you and I both know the answer to those questions, and that is why America needs you to act today. America needs Point of View. By joining the Truth Team, you can help ensure that Americans continue hearing a voice that is trustworthy, grounded in facts over hysteria, and most importantly, anchored to biblical truth. Join today at pointofview.net or by calling 1-800-347-5151. Pointofview.net at 1-800-347-5151. Point of View is produced by Point of View Ministries.